Doria Ragland, Meghan Markle's mother, appeared on the Harkle's Netflix horror-mentary to talk about how Meghan was treated by the British press when their relationship began. But as you listen to her words and watch her body language, you realize that some things just don't make sense, as you're about to find out. Welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. And before we begin, this is just a reminder that tomorrow I will be uploading an exclusive video to my locals community about how to react when a narcissist wants to trigger an emotion in you. You know those moments when these toxic personalities go out of their way to make you feel bad about yourself, push you over the edge, and you overreact so you look like the crazy one? Well, all my free members of my locals community are going to access that video tomorrow. If you don't want to miss it, join for free now with the link in the description of this video. Hands down, the first signal that we can see even before Doria says a single word is a subtle gesture that she displays in the following clip.
Can you just...
Well, I'm sure you noticed that somehow in that close up, we see that Doria was rehearsing her words in some way. She looks upward like this and begins vocalizing some words that we can't possibly know what she was saying at that moment. Maybe she was humming or singing a song to pacify herself. It's maybe one thing, but that would mean that she was a little bit nervous. And the gesture that I wanted to point out was this one, when she looks to her left right there, okay, in that direction, which she doesn't do at any other point in this mini clip, and she smiles. So maybe Meghan was right next to her. That makes sense because, well, not only Meghan wanted to control everything, including the production, but it would be nice to, check what Doria had to say. The only other two signals is that subtle lip pressure at the start and that look of being just a bit concerned at the end. Now pay attention to Doria's following reaction because it will be important later on.
Start off by introducing yourself to us.
Sure. My name is Doria and I'm Meghan's mom. And the last 5 years has been challenging. Yeah.
We begin to see the first signals of nervousness. Remember that we can't jump to body language conclusions with just one or two signals. We have to stack them so we can have a more solid idea of what's going on. But in this case, she starts with her head a bit towards the interviewer. That is nice. She is willing to be there. But after just answering that my name is Doria and the last 5 years have been, a bit harsh, she pulls her head back. Notice that her head is it's like backwards. It's a bit of resistance. That is just one signal, but it's a signal of, maybe was not that good an idea. Maybe she is camera shy. That's another possibility. And the other thing that you must have noticed is that rapid blinking when she says the last 5 years have been quite challenging. Now, in the following clip, it's not only her body language, but also her words that signal something odd.
I'm ready to have my voice heard, that's for sure. A little bit of my experience, as her mom. Yeah.
It's worth noticing that these clips are heavily edited because the gesture and the posture where one ends is not the same when the other begins. So, we have to take that into account. It's no big deal, but it's important. Sometimes could be important. At this moment, we have several signals of being a bit nervous. Notice that she tries to fit herself in the seat. She has a couple of single shoulder shrugs right there. So you can see her left shoulder going a bit up. And what happens when she's saying, a little bit in my experience, as her mom, Meghan's mom, she looked to one side right there. Remember that she looked to her left at the start of this video? She looked to her left in the same direction when she said, as her mom, referring to Meghan. So it's, highly likely that Meghan was standing next to her at that moment. Or not next to her, but maybe beside the lighting. Another signal that could be nervousness and camera shy is that she repeats that, as her mom. Well, we already know that you're her mom. Why do you repeat that? It's odd, but it could be just nervousness. It could be just being camera shy. Now, these signals of nervousness, it's important to take them into account, because if the person is nervous, that's a filter that we have to use when we watch the following clips. Like in this one, in which I'm going to scrub back and forth to see the change in her body language, and one signal that, proves that Doria was actually remembered at that moment. Notice upon the question, do you remember when Meg told you she was dating Harry, that Doria has that attitude of defensiveness. Her head and her chin are backwards, like pulling them back. This is a simple question. Do you remember when Meg told you she was dating Harry? Notice how Doria looks to her left, but it's way to her left. It's not like we saw a minute earlier. This is to her left, which is her memory bank. So she's actually remembered the moment when Meghan told her that she was dating Harry. And when she told me, we were on the phone, and she says, notice that her eyes go fully to her left again. So she's actually remembering the moment. I think that whatever she's saying right now, it's true. Meghan was whispering, "Mommy, I'm going out with Prince Harry." And she started like with this empathy connection, like mimicking Meghan. And I started whispering too, "Oh my God." And you notice that upon recalling this event that, I can say that actually happened, then she relaxes. You can see that her neck, her head, her lips, her shoulders all relax. So this actually happened. Even more so that she does this subtle nodding at the end. By the way, this is something that I noticed in Doria. It's part of her baseline, her common body language. You know that we have our way of expression, and it's important that we take time to, hey, this is the way this person's body language works. And speaking of moments when Doria, I think she was telling the truth, is this one. I remember asking Meg if I feel like her mom, and she says, and she told me that I felt like her older controlling sister. And she has this natural body language, very relaxed, no single shoulder shrugs. She says, I never forget that. And yeah, maybe this is why Meghan is a bit dominant. Maybe she learned to be like that older controlling sister, or maybe beyond that. This is one of the reasons it's important to make this analysis in chronological order, because you can assume that at the start of the interview, Doria could have been a bit more nervous, and as the interview progressed, she was more relaxed and could, talk at ease. That's the reason why they made sure to make these questions later on the interview. The Meghan was the smart one, and this is this narrative reinforcement when Doria says, I couldn't help her with her homework. She was way smarter. She got straight A's, very disciplined. I would say that Meg is a lost soul. And notice something odd. This is one part of the interview when Doria is looking straight into the camera. She's breaking that fourth wall, the wall that separates us from the protagonist of this documentary. It is just a bit unsettling, and it breaks the general aesthetics of, all the documentary, because you usually never have your guests to look straight into the camera because it's a bit too invasive. But I guess that someone that was just off camera was saying, why don't you say it straight into the camera so you are more convincing about, Meghan being the smart one? And yes, when she says, I couldn't help her with her homework, she was way smarter. She raises her left shoulder, only her left shoulder. A bit of insecurity saying that. Now, this clip is interesting because she starts looking into the camera and looks away almost immediately. Why could it be?
And I said to her, I remember this very clearly, that this is about race. And I said to her, I remember this very clearly, that this is about race.
Now, first of all, remember when Doria said remember and she looked to her left, actually accessing her memory banks? Well, here she says the word I remember, but she looks to her right. She looks to her right. There it is. She looks to her right. A contradiction, a bit odd since, well, every time so far she has remembered and talked about her recollections, she has turned her eyes to her left. So not only that, but this is quite important. I remember this very clearly, that this is about race, and she looks down and away and begins to rub her arm. She looks ashamed, but in this case we don't know if she is ashamed of the situation itself, of being about race, or having to say it on camera. Either way, it's not convincing at all. Now, this is the part when things really start to not make sense. Listen.
In hindsight, absolutely, I would like to go back and have that kind of real conversation about how the world sees you.
The real conversation that Doria is talking about is the topic of race. Like, well, you are a biracial woman, Meghan, and you have to face the fact that the world is gonna judge you that way. And I say that things don't make sense because it means that Meghan never really felt like a black or biracial woman. And she says that on the documentary. I cannot play this clip for copyright reasons, but I can read the subtitles. I had never in my life heard someone say the N-word. Very different to be a minority, but not be treated as a minority right off the bat. I'd say now people are very aware of my race because they made it such an issue when I went to the UK. This is important. But before that, most people didn't treat me like a black woman. So that talk didn't have to happen for me. So let me get this straight. Meghan said herself, in her own words, with the camera pointed at her face, that she never really felt like a black woman, and the black woman, conversation never happened. And then she doubles down on this.
And makes it, Mommy, I don't want to hear that. And so you may not want to hear it, but this is what's coming down the pike.
At that time, I wasn't thinking about how race played a part in any of this. I genuinely didn't think about it.
Now, these remarks have sparked a very interesting conversation on the internet, very civilized conversation about this. I encouraged you to follow P. Dina on Twitter because she has, a point with this. She made a very good video explaining that if Meghan never felt as a black woman, then how could she identify herself with the fact of racism and black women? I had my own thoughts about this. You can only be offended by a racial cultural attack if you feel part of that race or culture. Meghan says she never felt treated like a black woman until she began dating Harry. So how does she identify with the black or biracial community if she never felt part of it? If there was never a conversation, you're biracial, and what does it mean? Well, people are gonna see you in a certain way. But if Meghan never felt that, then how could she feel attacked as a black woman if she did not feel like one? I'm sure that to the effects of ratings, Meghan wanted to be purposefully ambiguous with these remarks, so people will say that, she's talking about the British media, but it sounds at some point that she's talking about the UK in general, that the UK is, racist. And that is hammered by Harry himself in this clip.
But what people need to understand is, as far as a lot of the family were concerned, everything that she was being put through, they had been put through as well. So it was almost like a rite of passage. And some of the members of the family was like, right, but my wife had to go through that. So
notice that when Harry says specifically, some of the members of the family were like, well, my wife had to go through that, they put Catherine on screen. Like, well, that was William who said that. That's what they are implying with this edit.
So why should your girlfriend be treated any differently? Why should you get special treatment? Why should she be protected? And I said, the difference here is the rape.
At least they had the decency to include that statement from Kensington Palace, who defended Meghan and said, well, back off, you wolves. And then you'd understand that that was the reason why Meghan included Doria on this documentary, to talk about race, to plant the race topic, to affirm that, well, whatever happened to her, it was because she is biracial, despite she never felt like, well, a black woman. That would explain Doria's nervousness about the topic. She is not really confident about saying that. And Meghan herself said at some point of the documentary that she was so fair-skinned that people didn't get at first sight that she was Doria's daughter. And well, it's a bit of a stretch to believe that Doria never talked to Meghan about race, not because of Meghan, but because of herself. And if that's true, if Doria never had that conversation with Meghan, it's because Doria herself was never treated in a certain way either? Or does that mean that they were not that close to have that kind of conversations? There will always be the question that why Meghan did not invite the rest of her family on Doria's side to her wedding. But as usual, I would like to know what you think about this in the comments. My Body Language buddies, my name is Jesus Enrique Rosas, I'm the Body Language guy, and remember to join my locals community to get all the exclusive videos that I will be posting there. Much love and bliss.